So nowadays, a lot of people believe that there was like some kind of magic in the past, that people could have these special lives and these special stories and change the world and change history. And now, everything is just boring. Or that magical things like that only happen in books and movies and shows. But I think you'd be surprised, for those of you that are listening to this and you think that your life is boring and your story is boring, or that you're normal and that other people have some crazy life story, the ones that have great lives that are remembered for years and years, that there's something different about them that you don't have. I just want to give you a little food for thought. I'm going to use the show Game of Thrones as an example, but this applies to a lot of stories. A lot of the characters that you love in Game of Thrones, or pick your favorite movie, whatever. I'm going to stick with Game of Thrones to make it easy. There's a lot of characters that, if you've watched the whole show, you really admire and you're like, damn, that's a badass character. Being them would be pretty sweet. But you think that when the show's over, for some of those characters like Arya or Tyrion or whoever, even Jon Snow and Daenerys, there's a lot of points in the first few seasons where, to be honest, when it pans over to them, you're like, oh my god, do I really have to sit here and watch more? Their story is so boring. They're just a victim. They're just at the mercy of life. They're not even going out on an adventure. They're almost like held hostage. You see that with Jon Snow, Daenerys, Tyrion. Like I said, a lot of the characters that we freaking love. A lot of the characters that later on you're like, man, that's such a developed character. That's such a badass character. Look at them, and they're all kingly now or queenly now, or whatever. But early on in the show, it's not really like that. It's pretty boring and frankly depressing as fuck. And what ends up happening is, and I want you to really think about this, all those people that shit on them, that tried to put them through hell, that were holding them back in the first few seasons and maybe even halfway through the show or something, like, by the end of the show, you don't remember those characters' names. Like, who's the guy that is like running the Night's Watch at the Wall and he treats Jon Snow like shit? I don't remember that motherfucker's name. The people that treat Arya like shit in King's Landing, and the weird ass people like that are just shitty like cunts, and they're not really living their adventure, but they're like shitting on others, like, we don't remember their names, we don't know who the fuck they are, we don't even think about that shit. But it's funny how in real life you think that everyone that puts their foot on your neck is like, oh man, the bad guys always win and the good guys never win. And listen, man, if you think that and you believe that in your heart, then that's what it'll be. But I think we forget that art is based on reality and inspired by reality. It's not the other way around. Obviously, because reality came first. Reality came first, and then we started making art. It isn't like art has some kind of magic that reality doesn't have. It's actually the other way around. They say there's no fiction stranger than reality. And to some of you who are like maybe a little jaded or something, you might be like hesitant to believe that. But I think you'd be surprised what would happen if you shut everything out and focus on your craft. And what your craft is, I can't decide for you. You got to figure that out. Maybe it's art, maybe it's a sport, maybe it's something you can make a career out of, maybe it's not. But Carl Jung said that if there's something that you do that's like creative or anything, a way for you to express yourself, he said that if you at some point, if you just stop, that's actually really bad. It's not healthy. And there's a lot of things that I used to do, especially when it comes to art, as a kid, that I stopped like when I was in high school. And now I'm 25 and I'm finally getting back into it. And I'm like, why did I not do this whole fucking time? It's part of who I am. I can't just throw it to the side. And you know, this channel is going to look like a fight channel because I'm an amateur fighter. I'm trying to go pro. You're going to see me post stuff when I fight. I'll post footage, and when I train or something, go check out my videos. I have some highlights right now, and my second amateur fight I posted. But listen, I don't want to imagine what my life would be like if I didn't start fighting. Like, even the years when I wasn't focused on art, like I like creative writing and I like music, I regret not doing that. But man, I'm sure glad I did something. I'm sure glad I put myself out there and I took a risk and I did something. Because not that long ago, and this is my point right here, like I'm not different than you, whoever you are listening to this. We're the same. I thought that my life was fucking boring and that there was something different about me, you know, that all these other people have these beautiful lives and their life is like a story, you know, but mine isn't. Mine's boring. And I used to really believe that, like, deep down. But I'm telling you guys, if you stop and look at whatever situation is happening in your life, you could write a book about that shit if you really use it, you know, if you really want to see the beauty in the story. If you don't want to see the beauty in the story, then you won't. But every situation you go through in life, especially with other people, but you can even break it down if you're isolated at this chapter in your life. If you break down situations the way you did in English class, you know, in high school, where you break down setting, plot, conflict, characters. So where does the story take place? What's the conflict? What's the plot line? And then what's the moral of the story? What's the theme, the underlying theme? You can break down real life like that. Because like I said, life came first. Symbolism happens in real life. That's why Jonathan Pajot has that shirt he sells that says symbolism happens. When I first saw that, I was like, what? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he doesn't mean what I think he means. But I think it means, hey, symbolism, where things happen and they're really deep and poetic, that doesn't just happen in books. That happens in real life. Right now there is like the greatest warrior of the land, Jon Jones, right? He's like the greatest warrior on earth. He's like this. There's all these legends about him, right? There's all these stories you hear about him. That's some shit from a book, isn't it? You know? Find your place in the world. Break down reality like you would a story in English class in fucking high school. Setting, plot, conflict, characters. Analyze your life and figure out what you are, you know. And if you're pursuing, like I was saying earlier about finding your craft, if you're pursuing a craft and then eventually it's not for you and you're disenchanted, find a new one. But please never do nothing. Please never get addicted to scrolling and trying to live your life through other. Don't be living your life through movies, watching other people live their life and not living your life. You are a character in a story. Life is a story. Human history is one long story. One of the best teachers I ever had was a history teacher, and he said, look, history is a story. It's not about memorizing dates and facts and stuff. And to go deeper, reality is a story. Reality is a narrative. Symbolism happens. I'm going to come back to this soon when I have more to say, but I needed to get that off my chest. Peace.